Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
She had really lots of friends. You know, she had a big effect on all of us.
A family mourns a loved one who faced two tragedies this holiday season in the midst of an ER closure in Prince Rupert. Also, as dozens rely on tents for housing.
Why do I live here? Just because it's so hard to find housing in Abbotsford.
Quite frankly, I'm worried about the safety of the people that are here living on the street.
The pressure grows for better response to BC's tent encampment problem. And from the ocean to the highway, a sea lion turns up in a very unique situation.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Baneet Braich. A Prince Rupert Indigenous family is enduring double tragedy this holiday. First, a fire tore through their apartment block on Christmas morning. Then, 71-year-old Juanita Hill fell in their hotel room, sending families scrambling for medical help. Now, as Tom Popick reports, a closed emergency room meant they had to drive over an hour for help.
It's Murray Hill's favorite photo of his wife.
She had really lots of friends. You know, she had a big effect on all of us.
Together more than 50 years, 4 children, and many more grandchildren and grandkids. Juanita Hill, a residential school survivor, was 71 years old, still gone too soon.
So I don't want you to struggle and hurt yourself anymore. I know this go. You know, and if we... No, all we could do was just to continue to say prayers and just to say goodbye to her.
Early Christmas morning, the Hill family woke up to the sound of fire alarms, flames tearing through their apartment, RCMP carrying Juanita down in her wheelchair from the 3rd floor.
And I would really love to know his name because I am eternally grateful and stuff. Because he got her down and we were able to evacuate out to our vehicle.
But soon after, in an evacuee hotel, a second tragedy.
Juanita, she fell into the bathroom and she hit her head. She was on the floor and really wasn't able to bring her up and stuff like that. And so we phoned the ambulance service.
The Prince Rupert Hospital just minutes away, but for 2 days the emergency room was closed. Instead, BC EMS driving more than an hour and a half to a new terrace hospital.
And my wife, she held on for at least another 2 or 3 hours and stuff, but she was declining pretty rapidly. And, you know, my grandchildren who were there and stuff like that, myself, over just said prayers with her and stuff and for her and sang to her.
Juanita never woke up. In a statement to CBC News, the BC Ministry of Health saying emergency departments are only ever put on diversion as a very last resort once all other options have been exhausted. Murray doesn't blame the healthcare system.
I'm sure that she would have received the same type of care in the Prince Rupert Hospital if it was available.
The family is now finding some peace in being together. A memorial will be held on Friday. Tom Popick, CBC News, Kelowna.
The pressure to help people living outdoors in BC is rising. In Abbotsford and Coquitlam, dozens of people are living in tents because they can't find appropriate housing. Chad Poston reports.
Outside this winter in communities across BC is a struggle for survival. People living in tent encampments say it's a choice they must make.
Why do I live here? Just because it's so hard to find housing in Abbotsford.
I was one of the first tents here. I thought it would be safer being closer to the shelter.
Just giving people a space to have their own, call their own, and then having harm reduction here and everyone else here to help out.
Tent encampments in BC are a seemingly impossible problem. Vancouver recently ended one here at Crab Park. It was the city's 10th location over the past 10 years, a problem that just keeps moving.
The whack-a-mole approach, closing down one encampment and then just another one popping up and closing that one down and so on and so forth, is really futile. It's not working.
Tent encampments pit public safety, public access for all versus time and resources to provide housing in a way that's appropriate.
The unhoused population is quite diverse, and it has a diverse range of needs and barriers that make existing either emergency shelters or single room occupancy hotels or other alternatives just not practically accessible.
Leaders in cities with current tent encampments say they understand this, that drastic action won't help and only move the problem along.
I mean, we hear concerns from our residents about their safety. Quite frankly, I'm worried about the safety of the people that are here living on the street. The best way we can support these people is to get them into housing, get them sheltered, and start to provide the services that they need.
Coquitlam's tent encampment began 6 months ago. It's right outside the city's 42-bed shelter. The shelter opened a decade ago despite community backlash. Now it's beyond capacity and lacking all the services needed to break the cycle of homelessness for people staying there.
The province needs to step up and help us because we have an unacceptable situation here, and we need to work with other levels of government to try to find a solution to it.
The sentiment is the same in Abbotsford. Its tent encampment, right at City Hall, is in part a protest over historical decisions and unmet promises by the city to help the homeless people who live here, something its current mayor acknowledges.
Yes, I'm still dealing with some of that aftermath. Reputationally, that's not who we are as a city, and it never has been.
Like Coquitlam, Abbotsford says it's trying to take a human rights-based approach, but has been in the courts after an injunction sought to stop it from using city bylaws to break up the camp. In October, the court sided with Abbotsford, but said displacement could only happen when adequate shelter and harm reduction was in place. Abbotsford's mayor says that's a problem.
And the conditions are that we provide housing, that we provide mental health and addiction supports. The conditions are clearly in the provincial government's jurisdiction.
Cities make it clear they don't have the resources to properly respond to tent encampments. The province has a 3-year multi-response plan to address homelessness called Belonging in BC. It's worth $633 million over 3 years. Homelessness has increased in places like Metro Vancouver, though. The federal government's trying to make a difference by providing $250 million and calls for matching funding from provinces. But a report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer calls for a 7-fold increase in yearly spending just to reduce homelessness by 50%. Families watching their loved ones struggle to survive want less government sparring and more spending more quickly. Sharon Sinclair is thankful her daughter was able to move from Coquitlam's tent encampment and into the city's shelter, but she still has unmet needs.
Build more affordable housing, build more programs for these people. They need help. They need to know how to get to the next stage of their mental health.
Meanwhile, those in and around tent encampments want more agency. They want to be listened to and be part of solutions, not moved on from encampments absent a better option. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
An update on a past story now. On December 23rd, we aired a story about illegal dumping in the Fraser Valley that contained an image of a company vehicle that was not connected to the alleged illegal dumping. We have removed that image from our YouTube page and website. And residents in 2 small Kootenay communities say they want clarity as the 2 cable ferries that more than 600 people rely on for transportation are set to see job action this week.
We feel like we're being held hostages in a dispute that isn't of our making.
A Friday ruling from the Labour Relations Board will see the Glade and Harrop cable ferries added to the service disruption in a labour dispute between the BC GEU members and employer Western Pacific Marine. That job action is expected to start on January 2nd. Western Pacific Marine said it is disappointed by the ruling and hopes to find a resolution as soon as possible. And BC's Emergency Call Service has released its annual list of the most unusual and inappropriate 911 calls. The 2024 list is topped by complaints about a neighbor wearing too much cologne, a stain left on a shirt by dry cleaners, and an unopened McDonald's restaurant. ECOM says 911 lines should be reserved to report in-progress crimes or emergencies.
Somebody's life is in immediate risk, or there's a threat to them or any sort of property crime, that is a 911 call.
ECOM says any other calls that are not immediate emergencies should be directed to the local non-emergency phone number. And it's been an eventful year for Premier David Eby, from a tight election win for his party to a new addition to his young family. CBC legislative reporter Katie DeRosa sat down with the Premier earlier this month to look back on 2024 and his expectations for the year ahead.
2024 saw Premier David Eby on the defensive over key issues like affordability, drug policy, and public safety. He hung on to power, but with a smaller mandate than his predecessor, John Horgan, and just a 3-seat lead over the BC Conservatives. Even before the legislature resumes, Eby is facing growing impatience to roll out election promises like financial relief. This month, he said British Columbians will not get the promised $1,000 grocery rebate until the spring, as it must be approved by legislation. His Conservative rivals called him a Grinch.
But David was not done with his masterful plan to steal Christmas joy from each who in the land.
Eby is also under pressure to address the issue of repeat violent offenders in the face of random attacks in Vancouver and other cities. One of his answers is involuntary care, to detain people with mental health and addiction issues under the Mental Health Act. Eby promised the first sites will be open this spring, with 10 beds at Surrey Pretrial Centre and more specially built at the Alouette Correctional Centre in Maple Ridge.
The beds that were announced, I mean, they're only a handful of beds, so are they enough?
The plan is we're moving to hundreds of beds across the province, and we have local governments coming forward with locations.
As for how long people will stay in those facilities?
There are a number of people who will be able to be stabilized and then moved into a lower intensity kind of environment. There are a number of people that will need full-time care for the rest of their lives.
One mental health advocate wants to see more oversight.
And it is clear to us that there's work to be done in and around improving the culture and the quality of involuntary care. So if the province is going to go forward with this, implementing measures that really safeguard quality, safeguard human rights, and provide independent oversight, like other jurisdictions, would be really, really important.
As for the toxic street drugs and the precursor chemicals that are often smuggled in to make them, Eby says port security needs to be strengthened. He's calling on Ottawa to chip in to address border security, saying he's been raising the issue for years, but Donald Trump's threat of U.S. tariffs has finally made it a pressing issue.
These are serious issues that need to be dealt with. So we've been working on that with the federal government for a couple of years with little success. I think we're going to have some more success now that the president-elect has raised that.
Eby says those tariffs would devastate BC's economy and threaten jobs in key industries such as agriculture, forestry, and manufacturing. It's just one of the issues the NDP will have to navigate when the legislature resumes in February. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
Chris Potter joins us now with a first look at the weather and a heads up on how we'll be ringing in the new year.
Well, Baneet, it wasn't a bad weather day. We still featured showers and drizzle across the lower mainland, but things have changed compared to last week where it was system after system after system. That's not to say they're not there. One is in the process of moving towards the coast, but with high pressure in the interior stretching in from the north, that's more or less going to protect a lot of areas from significant active weather for the last day of 2024 and into 2025. We still have some showers and drizzle for the rest of the evening, into the overnight as well through the lower mainland. That will start to break apart as we get through the overnight, still dealing with mostly cloud cover for the most part for tomorrow, but it looks much drier across the region than wetter. Showers for tonight, temperatures bottom out at around 4 for us for the morning and 6 for the afternoon. A slight chance for a few showers down towards Victoria and across Vancouver Island, but the rest of the region looks dry but fairly cloudy. More rain is in the forecast though. Details coming up.
And figuring out where to store your stuff takes time, but it's even more challenging for unhoused people. After the break, how some are finding a solution.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you for supporting those in need.
Thank you for making the season kind with CBC.
This province does incredible things on this day.
Even though our day of special programming in support of local food banks across BC is over, you can still give. To learn how you can donate, head to cbc.ca/kindbc.
This is Vancouver is a new CBC podcast where we explore the issues, the stories, and the people that make this place home. Listen to This is Vancouver wherever you get your podcasts.
Storage space is important for the stuff you don't use year-round. But what about people who sleep somewhere different every night? Or do they keep their stuff so it's not stolen or thrown away? Well, Wamish Hamilton shows us one solution in Vancouver's downtown east side.
Abel Johnson doesn't have much. He can fit his life's possessions into one plastic garbage bin. This is your stuff.
Yes.
You bring your stuff here.
I bring all my belongings here.
He's been living rough for just over a year. The streets taught him a hard lesson early on about what can happen to your stuff. Did you ever have a problem with your stuff before? Having it stolen?
I have, yes. When I first got here, my very first night, my entire suitcase and backpack was stolen right from underneath me.
Word on the street led Johnson here. The building used to be a bank.
Have a good day, guys.
And the old vaults are used to safely store people's stuff. Aboriginal Front Door Society expanded the service in 2022. after the city and police launched a decampment process in the neighborhood, forcing people to tear down tents and move their belongings off public streets and sidewalks. The city and the province pick up some of the costs.
So could you tell me about the storage people are able to use here?
They're homeless or vicariously housed or staying in a lot of shelters. We know that it's really tough to keep your belongings safe. If you have to carry them around with you, there's a good chance that they'll get stolen, lost, or thrown away. So this is the bid to keep people's belongings safe.
At first, only one floor of the two-story building was used for storage. But there is no shortage of people who need the service.
The bank is gone, but the vaults are still here.
Yes, it's kind of ironic anyways that we're using a safe to keep people's belongings safe. We've probably got about between 600 and 800 of these totes, and then about 400 of the large bins that the city uses for recycling and trash.
But these belongings aren't trash. They are connected to people. Their possessions help tell the stories of their lives.
This is the Kelsey room.
Livingston remembers Kelsey. She's one of the first people to store their stuff here.
You recall where she was from?
I believe she was from Vancouver Island somewhere.
Vancouver Island somewhere?
Yeah.
And she had 12 totes of stuff.
Yeah.
She's moved on, but part of her remains.
This is her room. Kelsey's legacy.
Yeah, I hope she's got a place, nice warm spot to stay and.
People register to use the service and have to check back regularly. Bins left unchecked for 3 months are often the result of the owner being in detox, jail, or returning home. But unclaimed items can also be a foreboding sign.
And people pass away as well.
How do you get notices of that?
So we hear on the streets usually or if it happens, and then we'll have family members contact us and they're able to retrieve their stuff.
Offering a place for homeless people to keep their stuff lightens the heavy loads they already carry.
Really their entire world that they're carrying around with them. And it really hurts to lose any piece that you have.
As it does for Johnson. A simple stuffy evokes a father's warm love.
I got a stuffed animal in here for my daughter, and I get emotional. I sometimes I cry, and I hug it and I kiss it, and I can feel her presence with me.
Wamish Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
A look at the day that was from the shores of Hanson Island. It not only looks beautiful, it's also a favorite spot for northern resident orcas and where scientists gather to study them. Well, coming up later in the show, our full BC weather forecast.
This holiday season, give the gift of live, local music. Road to the Junos tickets are available now. Head to cbc.ca/Junos and get yours before they're all gone.
For two newcomers in Vancouver, it was a struggle to find local and sustainable Asian condiments. So they decided to make their own chili oil with a star hero ingredient, duck fat. CBC's Creator Network takes you behind the inspiration for the fiery flavor.
We love the energy of working at night. It's a very calming experience. The whole town feels sleepy. There's no traffic, and we're just starting to go into that mindset that, okay, tonight we're making a certain amount of jars. Let's hustle. Growing up in Hong Kong, a lot of restaurants has their own version of chili oil. But moving to Vancouver, it was very challenging for me to find one that reminds me of the taste of home. We decided to hit up every single grocery store. Even for local options, we couldn't find a lot of locally made chili oil. We wanted to make our own version of fresh chili oil. Back in the days, my grandmother's family of 8, they had to be resourceful. And whatever fat they can render from their cooking, they make sauces with it. We had this idea to turn something that is usually a waste and make it something really delicious. And duck fat is essentially liquid gold. We went to Fraser Valley Specialty Poultry. We called them up, asked them if they have any surplus duck fat at their farm, and we noticed that there's a huge amount of duck fat that went to waste. It just sits there. So we managed to source a good amount of duck fat to make our first batch of chili oil.
It's funny because we made our first batch of fully duck chili oil, and then we were kind of new in town, so it was like a Chinese New Year kind of gift. We left it at their door, and a lot of them were like, it's actually really good. You guys could actually maybe think about selling this stuff. Very soon after that, we actually thought of the name too, Holy Duck Chili Oil. Because the Holy Duck portion of it, actually, it sounds very similar to the words Ho Duck, which means very good. She liked it a lot. It was something that reminded her of home. We decided, let's just keep experimenting, get more people to try it, get more honest feedback.
The business can get really hectic and frustrating sometimes. There's no sugarcoating about the hustle.
There's a lot of self-doubt when you're running your own business. You're always thinking, is it good enough? Are we good enough? That's always in the back of your head. That will creep up, and it gets diminished when people that are, very generous with their compliments, they tell us that we're doing great. That does keeps us going at night.
The last time we did a collab croissant with Chinatown Barbecue and Buku Bakery, that croissant collab attracted a long line around the block, which I think it was really crazy, and it was so well received. I'm so glad that it's coming back this year.
Being just the two of us, people are actually surprised that we actually do everything ourselves. It doesn't look like it's done by one person, and yeah.
Well, both of us are the brains of the business.
You can say that, but yeah, she does most of the marketing side of the business, and she's like a wizard. No matter how busy we get, the product that we push out, it has to be as good as it was when we first started. My dad always says quality goes a long way. If you don't put in a quality product, they eventually catch on, and everything else can fall after that.
The longer we run this business, the more we realize that we're not just selling a sauce. Holy Duck connects us with our friends and relatives. It connected us with our own family history and heritage as well. I guess that's the most valuable part. It's very important, as a small business especially, to preserve culture because we have the freedom and flexibility and the decision-making power.
It's been a great journey so far. We've learned so much and just been humbled all the time by just the challenges that we faced. People, they tell us stories on how they use it and how they love it, and it's just people are so genuine with their compliments.
Finding purpose in our work, I think, is what keeps us going and keep us innovating.
I just love Holy Duck too much to give up on it.
Tributes and stories about late U.S. President Jimmy Carter pour in from across the world. After the break, a look at how many people are remembering him. The intense hunt for a double murder suspect in Alberta is now over. Calgary police say the man has been found dead. It comes at the end of what's been a tense and tragic 24 hours in and around the city after police first found 2 people killed in 2 separate homes. Madeline Cummings has the latest.
Just a few hours after taking the unusual step of issuing a dangerous person alert, police say they have found the body of the man suspected of killing 2 family members on Sunday night. Responding to reports of a person in medical distress, police found a man in his 70s, dead in northwest Calgary. Later on Sunday evening, in a different neighborhood, officers found the body of his daughter, a woman in her 30s. Neither victim has been identified. News of the killings alarmed Calgary residents, who described the neighborhoods as quiet, calm, and peaceful.
It's scary. It's messed up, so that's not fun to wake up to.
Definitely concerning that it happens right here, just a few houses down.
Police issued the alert just after noon on Monday.
This is an Alberta emergency alert.
urging people to look out for 38-year-old Benedict Kaminsky, who police believed was the woman's spouse. Investigators say Kaminsky wasn't known to police. They warned he could be armed and asked residents to remain vigilant.
So although we still very much believe this was a targeted homicide, we just wanted to alert the public to the concerns that we have for the behaviors of this individual, having committed a double homicide within the last 24 hours, and really we're stronger together as far as utilizing the public to help us in this investigation.
And they did get that help. Police canceled the alert just hours later, saying tips from the public led them to Kaminsky's black Nissan Pathfinder, parked along a road in the Water Valley area, about 65 kilometers northwest of the city. Police found Kaminsky dead near the SUV. Autopsies for the two victims are scheduled for Friday, and in the meantime, police say they are supporting the family members who are safe and secure. Madeline Cummings, CBC News, Edmonton.
Investigators in South Korea are working to determine the exact cause of a tragic plane crash on Sunday. 179 people died after a Boeing jet landed without wheels, then slammed into an airport barrier. Caroline Bargut has the latest.
A show of respect by South Korea's acting president Monday at a memorial for the 179 people killed in Sunday's tragic Jeju air crash. It happened as the plane came in for sudden emergency landing after an apparent bird strike without its front landing gear deployed and burst into flames. It was allowed to land in the wrong direction, which is how it ended up crashing into a concrete wall. Only 2 people survived. This transportation official says had there been more time, fire trucks would have already been dispatched. Most of the bodies have now been identified, but officials say it could take up to 10 days to return the remains to loved ones, because most are not intact. That's adding to the grief for some families, including Park Han-shin. I hope my siblings, my family, can be recovered and returned to us, he says, even if only 80% intact. Questions now turn to what caused the crash and why the front landing gear wasn't down.
What happened to the systems after the bird strike and how the pilots handled it, that's going to be the focus of the investigation. And answers are going to come out relatively soon once the data from the black boxes are downloaded.
Those are now being analyzed, and South Korea says it's launched an investigation into the airline's safety standards and ordered inspections of all 101 Boeing 737-800 planes flown by local airlines. Thousands more are used by airlines all over the world, including in Canada. In a statement, Boeing offered its condolences to the families affected, adding, "We are in contact with Jeju Air regarding Flight 2216 and stand ready to support them." Representatives from the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board and Boeing are expected to arrive in Korea on Monday to take part in the investigation. Caroline Bargut, CBC News, Toronto.
And condolences for former U.S. President Jimmy Carter continue to come in from around the world. Carter, the 39th president and Nobel Peace Prize laureate, has died at the age of 100. As Sarah Levitt reports, he is being remembered for his efforts to expand peace and human rights.
In London, flags fly at half-mast at the Parliament buildings and the Prime Minister's home. Tributes to Jimmy Carter from across the ocean, one day after his death. Evidence, too, of the former United States president's global influence. King Charles saying of Carter, his dedication and humility served as an inspiration to many. The Australian Prime Minister noting his legacy is best measured in lives changed, saved, and uplifted. And in the United Nations Security Council chambers,
I should like to pay tribute to James Earl or Jimmy Carter.
A moment of silence.
He had a genuine interest in the idea of that making lives better wasn't just an America thing. It was a thing for anybody who wanted to have better schools, better housing, better transport, a better way of life.
Foreign policy was a major focus for Carter both during his term in office and his post-presidential work.
He wanted to be remembered as a peacemaker, largely, and dedicated to human rights.
That true, whether it was decades of conflict in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, China and U.S. relations, or the Middle East in 1972.
The first peace between Egypt
and Israel, between Israel and its Arab neighbors at Camp David. It is the greatest diplomatic personal achievement of any president in our time.
It's a peace treaty that has stood the test of time. It's held for nearly half a century, and we believe it holds hope for future generations.
Carter's relentless work was undeniable, eventually leading to a Nobel Peace Prize in 2002, but his efforts still recognized to this day. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky commemorating Carter's legacy as he also deals with war. Today, let us remember peace matters and the world must remain united in standing against those who threaten these values. May his memory be eternal. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, London.
And there are some cracks appearing in the support for U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. As Katie Nicholson reports, he is coming under fire from the conservative wing of the Republican Party over immigration.
Take over, Elijah. Take over. The alliance that helped push Donald Trump to victory now seemingly at war within the MAGA movement over the issue of immigration.
The H-1B visa program is a total and complete scam from its top to the bottom.
Trump's former chief of staff taking aim at H-1B, a special work visa often used by Silicon Valley to hire highly specialized tech engineering talent from abroad.
We have an exciting show for you.
This spat started after the incoming president tapped Indian-American venture capitalist and podcaster Sri Ram Krishnan to be the White House's AI advisor. Krishnan has advocated for more skilled immigrants to enter the country.
Of these Einsteins,
that set off far-right immigration voices in Trump world.
American citizens come first.
While Elon Musk posted on X, the reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong, is because of H-1B, adding he would go to war on the issue. Bannon hit back, calling Musk a toddler. They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. Trump campaigned on anti-immigration tropes like the disproven rumor Haitian immigrants were eating pets. Yet strategic immigration has traditionally been a GOP norm.
It's actually conservative and Republican Party orthodoxy to support high-skill immigration. We see it, we've always framed it as a way to counter China, to compete with China. You want to attract the best workers.
Donald Trump had previously been critical of the visas, but now he seems to be siding with Musk. He told the New York Post Saturday, "I've been a believer in H-1B. I've used it many times. It's a great program."
A lot of the MAGA folks, they want Trump to come in and just be a hardliner on everything and dogmatic. That doesn't work in Washington.
Republican strategist Chris Ingram says he thinks talk of a civil war in MAGA world is overblown and that Trump can calm the rhetoric down.
If he wanted to change the nature of the debate right now, all he has to do is send out a tweet.
For now, the incoming president appears to be letting it all play out on social media. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
And bird flu is being blamed for the death of a house cat in Oregon. U.S. officials say the cat contracted the H5N1 strain of avian flu through raw pet food. The Northwest Naturals brand raw turkey product in 1 kilogram bags is produced in Oregon. It's sold in several U.S. states and in British Columbia. It has been recalled by the manufacturer. There have not been any reports of human infection. It looks like rain, rain, and more rain. And Chris Potter joins us now with our full weather forecast.
Yeah, Baneet, it has been a very wet couple of weeks, but things have dried out, at least for the last day of 2024 and maybe the first or second day of 2025. We'll start off with some statistics. 5.7 is that normal daytime high, 0.3 is the normal overnight low. And today temperatures were basically in the mid to upper single digits in most areas. Into the interior, temperatures at 0 or below. Very comfortable. And for the most part, most areas were drier rather than wetter. Of course, we do have a weak disturbance across the south coast. That will continue to clear off the map as we head through tonight and into tomorrow. And for the most part, we're just dealing with a lot of cloud cover. This is going to be the case through Tuesday and Tuesday evening. Some rainfall will start to move towards western Vancouver Island, but it doesn't really move in until the evening hours. So we do have a couple of showers towards Vancouver, primarily south and towards Victoria. Higher elevation snow as well, but you're not seeing it spread across the entire forecast region. Once again, we have high pressure in place, and that's going to hold, at least for now, all that significant active weather at bay. That begins to change Wednesday night and into Thursday. We start to see more organized active weather move in, higher elevation snow and showers across the lower mainland, Vancouver, Victoria as well. In terms of rainfall potential, not much for Tuesday and Wednesday, but as we get through Wednesday night into Thursday, it starts to fill in. It looks like 10 to 20 millimeters in some locales. Snowfall is going to be fairly minimal as well until we get into Wednesday night and into Thursday, and that's when once again it starts to fill in across the board. So it's not looking like a bad start to 2025, and not a bad day for the last day of 2024. We're seeing a lot of cloud cover, maybe some showers across Vancouver Island down towards Victoria. For the most part, we're dealing with lots of cloud, seasonable highs, maybe a few flurries towards the interior through Williams Lake, but it's a very quiet day in comparison to last week as the system after system moved onshore. Now, in terms of the forecast, 6 again for Tuesday in Vancouver, 5 for us on Wednesday for the first day of 2025. Then we get into some shower risk on Thursday. Should be fairly scattered, minimal accumulations, maybe up to 2 millimeters, but then another surge of heavier rainfall moves in for Friday. It looks like 20 to 30 millimeters, along with daytime highs near 7, and then 8 for Saturday with a chance of additional light rain. That's a full check on your forecast. Baneet.
All right, thanks so much, Chris. And drone operators across Canada will see some big changes over the next year as new regulations come into effect. Well, one major change will allow drones to fly beyond the visual line of sight. As CBC's Georgie Smythe looks at how that will make a big difference.
Drone's going to take off on its own.
Canada's skies are opening up. There's new rules on the way for drone users, making longer, more complex flights easier to do.
We've seen the technology become more sophisticated. We've seen drones become larger and more capable. And there's been a call for more regulations to enable routine operations of what industry would call beyond visual line of sight.
Beyond visual line of sight, that's the term for flights when a drone leaves the pilot's field of view and flies kilometers away to a totally different location, enabling things like large-scale drone deliveries, aerial surveys, and anything that could be done remotely by drone. Until now, it would have taken months to get permission from the regulator for these kinds of flights.
Beyond visual line of sight, that's a whole new realm.
The rules will be most lax in sparsely populated places, meaning Canada's smaller, more remote communities could stand to gain the most as companies seize on this new potential.
So once the command is given to drop the payload, it's an automated process.
Right now we're talking about a lot of data intelligence services where we're collecting data and doing aerial surveillance or mapping or whatever. The next evolution will be where we're using drones for moving middle-mile cargo.
Or even life-saving cargo like medicine could fill gaps in local infrastructure like pharmacies, as this pilot project found out, trialling deliveries to a First Nations community in northern BC.
This technology holds great promise to kind of close, hopefully eliminate the gap in access to medical supplies.
For many in the industry, the future use cases for drones are impossible to fully realise just yet. And don't expect drone-filled skies that soon. While the laws will be published shortly, they won't officially launch till fall. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still to come, what happened to a sea lion that was found in a pretty unusual place on Vancouver Island over the weekend? That's next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC is a proud partner of the UBC Lunar New Year celebration on January 16th. It's a special evening with CBC guest host Margaret Gallagher. Tickets at give.ubc.ca. And the CBC concert series Road to the Junos is heading to Vancouver. The 5-night series kicks off January 26th at the Pearl. Get tickets at cbc.ca/Junos before they're all gone.
How energy efficient is your home? Well, one way to find out is from libraries around Victoria. They are lending out take-home thermal imaging kits to calculate energy efficiency and perhaps help cut down on the heating bill. Take a look.
My name is Nikki Elliott, and I manage the climate action programs at the Capital Regional District. Recently, we partnered with the local libraries to launch our thermal imaging cameras. These are designed to help folks look around their homes, and it visually shows where there may be heat loss or cooling loss for in the summer, and where there's attention that needs to be had, whether that weather stripping or whether that be more insulation or getting some additional support from our retrofit community. On the screen, you see a visual difference in colors against the temperature difference. So if your home, for example, in the winter is being heated, and there's some cracks, let's say, in the insulation, you'll see a different color show up specifically in that spot. So the kits come with functionality in which you can take a picture of what you're seeing, you can upload that, email that to yourself. Typically you'll see, certainly around windows, our typical area, but we also see around doors, gaps in insulation, such as around your roof line. Often there'll be spots around lighting outlets, for example, where there may be some missing insulation in there as well. They're really designed to be fun and to help identify some easy ways that folks can do retrofits in their homes, and also link to broader programs such as our Home Energy Navigator program to do more intensive retrofits and supporting people at home. Certainly the CRD is interested in supporting our residents and advancing climate action at home and in the community. Buildings in particular relate to a lot of greenhouse gas emissions, and so learning about energy, learning about emissions, and helping to advance projects that will reduce those in the region is important to us.
And a sea lion was found in an unusual place over the weekend. You can see it here on the side of the Pacific Rim Highway near Kennedy Lake, just outside of Tofino. So the Department of Fisheries and Oceans said it was a very unique, out-of-habitat situation. It says the animal was likely trying to get back to the ocean from Kennedy Lake, and crews worked to make sure the sea lion and motorists were safe, and the sea lion eventually made its own way back to the lake. And 2025 is just on the horizon, and you're invited to ring in the new year with CBC. So you can join Adrian Arsenault and Ian Hanamansing as they count down to the new year tomorrow. You'll see familiar faces and surprise guests as they celebrate with communities from coast to coast. And you can also submit your own well wishes for the new year at ask@cbc.ca to appear throughout the show. The special programming starts on New Year's Eve at 5 p.m. Pacific on CBC News Network and CBC Gem, and also at 9 p.m. local on CBC Radio 1, CBC TV, and of course everywhere you stream CBC News. And we hope to see you there. Thanks so much for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, that's cbc.ca/BC. I will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. We leave you now with a roundup of CBC Vancouver's best photos of 2024, all taken by our talented Ben Nelms. Good night.